The SP 500 and the Nasdaq 100. Let's talk about exactly what happened on the day today, what we're looking at going forward, and everything in between so you are prepared to trade. Now, when we get in here, I want to talk about specifically where we're at with the SPY. If we look here at SPY, I do want to say over basically the past day, 2 days roughly, you've sat in this little bit of a range, and it actually doesn't look good. It doesn't look bad. Sorry, it does not look bad, right? So we've had a little bit of a drop from this morning, coming to the downside. Obviously, we're popping back up at the end of the day. You can really see, sorry, this was this morning, pop back up, triple top, quad top, whatever you want to call this, and now we're pushing back down. That's where we're at there. Now, if we go and look a little bit at Qs, I think you get a little bit of an interesting viewpoint. Qs are doing not so well. This is Friday's close, big drop this morning, came back up, made a lower high, and pushing down, down, down. Still holding in this downtrend, right? Now, I will say a few things here. You are continuing to make higher lows. Relatively, right? Still making higher lows. It's your good note, basically from the lows that you made on the 22nd. Bad note, you still don't look good. There's not a lot of buyers. There's not anything really great going on there. Before we go any further, I have to ask you to consider doing two things: liking and subscribing. Every single day I make videos for you, so you are prepared on the market. You know exactly what I am doing, what to expect as far as news, and the key supply and demand levels that hopefully you get some information out of. Take this channel as education, not as financial advice. And always remember, you are responsible for all of your trading. You can never look and blame someone else because no one else is going to give you your money back. And I recommend that you question everything that I say and anyone on Twitter or YouTube. Now, I also recommend you follow my YouTube. I go live, or I at least post content there every single day. Went to supply and demand levels last night on NQ and SPY, and guess what? You hit those levels here again this morning. It's worth mentioning. So again, I recommend you follow at the very least if you get anything out of this video. Let's get back to it. So going back in here, that's what I'm looking at. Now, viewpoints on the market so far, have they changed? Do I still expect downside? I do. I still see the downside, playing out here. If we go to something like the 4-hour and we look here at futures, I think you get a lot of clear answers, if you will. Now, if we come in here to futures, it's worth mentioning that you are still making higher lows and then lower highs here. So it's nothing great, nothing to be super proud of. And you can see you continue to make new demands along the way on the 4-hour. You can see this is your previous, overall supply. And I'm making another supply here, lower and lower and lower. So that still looks not so good. Now, what I will say, as far as this, with what we're seeing here right now, it's important to realize volume. I always say this. Yahoo Finances is probably the best way to look at volume, and I think you're getting some answers here today. We have about 20 minutes left in the market. I don't think any crazy volume will take place today, but I could be wrong. It's looking like you're going to come in around 55 million on the volume. 15 million probably comes in between the last 20 minutes, and then after hours also, being a little bit generous there, but pretty terrible. Coming out of a holiday, this was one of the concerns that we would see minimal volume this week. Food for thought. That's what we're looking at. Now, I will say you saw a lot of that volume kicking in on Thursday before Friday of Christmas. So going a little bit further, let's talk about this. Now, when we look at NQ, I think NQ gives you a best visual of the market, right? So we look at your demand and your supply levels. We can come back. You can look clearly where you're at. Right, this is a 4-hour time frame. This is probably the only time frame I think you can really establish any type of demand off of here on NQ. So if you zoom in, you can really see. You come right back down to that 11.9 area. I'm going to go into Bookmap and show you what's happening there also. But you can also see we've never retested that supply. So you continue to get a bounce, but you just push back down. You don't really get any buying pressure. Now, what I'm going to say here, though, is coming into this morning, what was I saying last night? I went live also yesterday. You wanted to watch out for volume. That's going to be your key answer. So if we would have pushed up with minimal volume, I would have just been like, yeah, whatever, probably stacked more puts. But today, things went weird. You kind of come out this morning and then immediate downside. There was no level in the market specifically. We look at stocks like NVIDIA, and they're just getting hit. NVIDIA really falling down, trying to fill this gap. You actually did end up filling your daily gap right there also at 142, right? Tesla, getting hit, down to 111. You've filled any and every gap that you have down there almost right now, right? The big boy, the one I love so much, Microsoft, you have not even started to fill that gap down to 228 on the daily time frame, but I still love this play. I still have some puts here, so I want to let everyone know that. But you look at some of these really big names getting hit really hard today, and then we look at SPY, and it's basically sitting flat. Nothing really happening here, right? Very strange behavior. If we go and we look at something like Flow Algo, and then we are going to look at Bookmap also, we'll start with Bookmap, then go into Flow Algo. I just want to highlight here. coming specifically into NQ. And then we'll go look at ES. You can look here, and this is basically just giving you a visual of level 2 data. It's the best way I can describe this. You can see you come down to 10.9. There were no really big buyers here, no real big walls to really push you back up. What does that mean? Typically, when you come into a demand, there's going to be a level of which there are buyers in the market, and that's where they'll show up typically. Now, today, there was no underlying value. So like right here, you can see that order stayed on the book for about, 15, 20 minutes right here. You can see it right there. You came down, you bounced. There was nothing really here. Get a little bit of a bounce, and then a buyer showed up, and you bounced back up. It basically took the order off the book here, and you never retested. And then we saw here near the end of the day, when we got another retest down here, buyers started to show up a little bit more, but then they took the orders off the book. And it's just a lot of uncertainty. So what it's telling me right now is that going into the after hours, buyers don't feel comfortable holding orders overnight. Buyers don't feel comfortable leaving a wall up, overnight or into, after hours, because it's been pretty unpredictable in the after hours, right? That's why when I was live yesterday, people were like, oh, you're gapping up, you look strong, you're this, you're that. First of all, in the short term, if we bounce, it would not be the worst thing for me. But I'm going to tell you right now, get off the 1 minute, get off the 5 minute, get on the 4 hour, get on the daily, because that's where you're going to really start to see the trend forming here. Going into ES, we can also see a very similar thing here, right? Not a lot of orders here. And then you start to see buyers try to hold you up, and you break down, break down, break down. What I want to mention here specifically is on ES, you're not seeing a lot of this. It's icebergs right here, right? You're not seeing a lot of. You saw a lot of shorting this morning. On NQ, different story. We started to see a lot of this start to take place after the lunchtime, going into power hour specifically. So early this morning, after lunch, a lot of shorts start to come into the market on this blue right here. That's pretty bearish to me. It's something I look forward to when I'm looking at downside potential, right? Next up, flow algo. We look at something like the big orders coming in, specifically some of the sweeps where I like to put a lot of my focus on. And you can see NVIDIA, a lot of the selling. The trade desk, some of the big orders coming in here, specifically Tesla and NVIDIA are the big ones I was looking at, right? I'm going to be making the change most likely back to cheddar flow so everyone knows here. I like to be as transparent as possible, but I just am not liking what I'm getting from cheddar flow. From flow algo lately. It's been just really run down in comparison. I'm just writing out the rest of my membership. Cheddar flow was giving me better information. Going into SPY also. You're not getting a lot of these orders in here on full algo, but the orders that you are getting in here, you can still see it's heavily in favor towards the downside here on SPY. Going into Qs, not as much. But when you come into Cheddarflow, I recommend y'all follow Cheddarflow's Twitter. They do post a lot of information for free. So again, I'm a big advocate for free content. You're seeing a lot of these big orders come in. Puts, NVIDIA, Tesla, QQQ out of the money is coming in. You can also go with your broker and verify all these also. So sometimes people like say, oh, well, this is people selling puts. They're people opening up different contracts or closing contracts. Go verify with your broker. You can go to Thinkorswim, go to Interactive Brokers, and you can look at the actual flow of open interest and volume per day on these specific levels. That's what I do all the time. So I really want to make sure people are focusing on the information you're getting here. So today, you saw a lot of aggressive, in my opinion, options towards the downside dated for February, March, and January. That's just seeing a lot of that aggressive ordering, okay? So again, here I still see the downside potential. It's what I'm looking at. Maybe I'm a little bit biased because I do have Microsoft puts, but that's what I'm looking at right now. Going into a few other things before I go into some stocks I'm looking at, let's look really quickly here at VIX, okay? So when you look at VIX, I'm going to tell you right now, nothing incredible here, right? You're still kind of just trending in no man's land above 20 in the 21 area. Not a really big inflection yet. When we go to the 4 hour, I like to look at it here just to give you the best visual. You can see you're just kind of trending here. Typically, when you come down this level, as we saw back in August, we saw back here and early December, we go back here into April, you go back here into January. When we had the big kind of pivots on the market, you saw some volatility kick in here. So I'm still preparing, still watching VIX. You're seeing a lot of those orders come into the book. You're seeing a lot of put orders attack the market right now. And you're seeing people say, well, there's so many puts, you're going to have to get an opposite reaction. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. So this is what I just want to highlight right now, is that you're still at this crucial point. And so for people to say, oh, well, I think upside is likely, hypothetically, let's say upside is likely and it happens, how much room are you really going to have on downside on VIX here? To 19, to 20? Will you come down to 16? Possible, but unlikely based on the last year's trend. I don't like to just use what we had in the past, but I like to focus on how things have reacted at certain levels. And VIX reacts pretty positively to the upside from this level. Going a little bit further into, yields. What's happening here? Specifically on the day, the US 10-year. Doing pretty good. The US 2-year, the 2-year yields, they went pretty bullish this morning also, right? Really getting that upside push. Now, going into the inversion, which everyone knows, I love this thing. It's one of my favorite things overall. One of the best visuals of the market. You're coming right down to that level, the higher low trend line of the past 2 years. So a lot of questions about this, also asking the why I use it, how I use it, what does it mean? Now, one, I recommend just doing a quick Google search, people. One, I'm not going to do a full education video on the 10, 30-year yield inversion. Do a quick research of it for yourself. Guys, if you come to the channel or you go to anyone's channel and you just want them to give you answers and you're not willing to put in work, I'm going to tell you, and again, this might cause people to unsubscribe for me and they might think I'm rude, but I'm going to tell you, you're doing yourself a disservice. You're being lazy. You're just not willing to put in the work. It takes no time at all to Google what is the importance of a 10 to 30-year bond inversion on the U.S. markets. It takes no time at all. You can look back and look at the previous cases. What's happened here? 2018, you had a big dip on the market. 2008, 2007, housing bubble, dot-com bubble. Obviously, there's something that's working here, right? When this happens, when this inverts, people are, worth mentioning. But again, just put in the work, start to do the research for yourself. I don't mind answering questions, but I'm not going to answer here on a daily video and just go on a tangent for 10 minutes, right? So guys, you got to be willing to do the work for yourselves. But I will mention here, I do expect to get a bounce relatively soon here on the inversion. And that's what I'll be looking for. If you break down, really interesting, would be willing to see what happens from there. Going into TLT, again, I've been talking about this. As you expect the market to continue to bleed, as you see weakness on the market, TLT should be getting hit. It should be hurting. Guess what? TLT since December 15th, people were saying buy calls, you're breaking out, you're this, you're that. Well, guess what? Nothing but downside since then, right? Nothing but downside. And all those people have started to kind of be like a turtle and go back into their shell and just not talk about it, right? Because if we don't talk about it, then it never really happened. But here on the channel, we like to highlight things that we say that are wrong specifically. I do highlight things that I say that are right, but I want to focus on things that are wrong so we can correct those issues. And if we look here, TLT is bearish right now. It is. You have the breakout, but I was not convinced. And right now, you're seeing the reason of it pulling back. Remember, we were on flow algo. We were talking about TLT and what was happening on these. You're still seeing big put orders come in, but I've highlighted, I believe it was last week, we had massive orders of TLT puts coming in, and you're seeing those take place right now, pushing you back down to the 90 range. Concerning, looks weak. TLT, big red flag on the market right now. Again, this is what I think you have to be watching. A lot of people keep talking about DXY. You're sitting in a massive support zone down here. Not really concerned. There's a lot of different factors that are going to be hurting this overall. The last thing I want to mention, Putin bans selling oil. This was pretty big today. So Putin banned Russian oil exports to countries that implement a price cap. This was an interesting factor. If you watch my videos specifically, I was doing a thing every Sunday going over like a long-term view, but the past 2 weeks I haven't been able to. Just holidays coming up. I'll restart it this week, promise. China takeover. You had the Russia bloodbath. You had the Black Swan. These are all big videos that I went over kind of outlooks of the market. When you look at those, it's all leading to this. This is dangerous, people. Right now, if Russia starts to do this, you need to understand how big of a producer of oil Russia is. And we all think, oh, well, everything's happening in Ukraine and we're not buying Russian oil. We're still buying it, people. Europe's still buying it. We can say, oh, we don't like Russia all we want, but we're still fueling the entire war for Russia by buying their oil every single day. Want to highlight that. Right now, going into oil, the barrel, what's happening? On the daily time frame, you've been shooting up, okay? Now, oil, the part where it has to move up for me to be concerned is getting back above 2021 October highs, right? You need to get back above this level, about right here. This is basically 2021 highs, 85 roughly, right? I want to highlight about right there. That's where you need to get back above. Do you get back above 85? I think you have reason for caution. I think you have to expect downside in the market, specifically based on inflationary numbers, right? When we look at what Powell said, when we look at what everyone's been talking about in the market, what's the one area that no one can predict? No one has any control over. It's the oil market. Right now, oil hypothetically should be tanking. If you really think about what's happening here in the market, oil prices should be tanking, specifically US crude, because all we're doing is releasing strategic reserves in massive amounts. But guess what? Those levels are depleting, and it's looking like oil wants to go up again. I have no oil positions, but I just want to highlight this. This is the reason why the healthiest stocks in the market are your oil companies. Exxon, Oxy, we can go to Chevron. They're all the best performers. They continue to push higher and higher and higher, and it looks like the trend is going to continue. This right here could potentially be one of the most bearish things for the market. I'm going to tell you right now, make sure you're watching this specifically, especially if you're a long-term investor. Over the next 2 months, I believe this will be the most influential impact on the market, specifically with our inflationary numbers, CPI, PCE, PPI. If oil prices start to pump again, I'm telling you right now, you will feel the pain in mass. And then on top of that, if oil prices rise while unemployment rises, I am telling you 100% the market will feel pain. I believe even worse than we did this past year. My personal opinion. I'm going to keep you guys updated. I'm still doing research on this, watching how this plays out. So make sure you stay subscribed. Make sure you're paying attention. More content will be coming. Again, I didn't have enough time in the video, and I don't want to make a 20-minute video, but make sure you're subscribed on Twitter because I'm going to be posting some charts tonight of charts that I'm liking and stocks I'm watching. Have a good one, traders.